all of the products that we have coming out of India, I feel like every single piece of clothing that we showcase, also jewelry, has such a deep story to it.
I try to shop only in India now because it's that thing. Like, there's so much talent, and I think people are finally giving us the credit. I grew up in a community that loves nature, that literally worships nature, and everything goes back to the land. And then I live in New York City, which I loved in the beginning. But now I'm like, it's such a waste. Everything is a waste. You know? As you know, most brands will lean towards smaller and dainty pieces, but I wanted to do the opposite with Maalicious. I wanted to say, you can be vibrant, you can be loud, you can be unapologetic, wild, crazy, and your jewelry will reflect that.
There is so much of a story and so much passion that gets lost online. Like, it's so difficult to tell these really, really honest, authentic stories online.
It really started from a space of escape. Just wanted to escape my own pain. And what gave me happiness or joy at that moment was just making something I love. I wanted to show people that you can have beauty and fragility coexist. You can have joy and grief coexist.
Welcome to the IKKIVI Podcast. On this episode, we're joined by Poonam Thimmaih, founder of Maalicious, a jewelry brand rooted in culture, community, and craftsmanship. Known for its bold yet thoughtful designs, Maalicious is handmade by women artisans, blending heritage designs with a vision for social impact. A restless New Yorker with Kodava roots, she splits her time between India and the US, drawing inspiration from her culture, stories from her people, and the natural world, transforming them into pieces that spark conversation and create meaningful impact. She is a mom of two and balances her creative journey with raising her children, infusing her work with the same love, resilience, and curiosity she brings to raising her children. In this conversation, we explore her journey before Maalicious, what sparked starting this brand, how her immigrant experience has shaped her voice and vision for the brand, and how she continues to redefine bold jewelry through storytelling, craft, purpose, and a vision. Welcome, Poonam, to the IKKIVI Podcast. I'm so glad to have you on this podcast, and Diva for kind of connecting us and bringing us together. And once I started to read more about you and your brand and the story, I wanted to know more about you and your brand and all that you do. So my first question to you actually is not about the brand, but before you started the brand, what was your journey like, and what drew you towards jewelry and design?
So first of all, thank you, Nivi, for having me. I love what you're building with IKKIVI as well as this podcast. I think it feels like a very honest and necessary space. So thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. And this is my first podcast, so I'm glad it's with you.
Welcome.
Of course. Thank you to Diva as well for connecting us indeed. But yeah, a little bit about me. I grew up in India. Because of my dad's work, we moved every 3 years. So I feel like I've done a state tour of India in my childhood. But no matter where we lived, all my summers were spent in Coorg, Kodagu, which is this gorgeous little place in the Western Ghats of South India. The community I come from, we worship the land, we worship the river. And so like being inspired by nature was put in me very early, and it just feels like home for me. And that's where you kind of see all my inspiration comes from. That's why so many animals and birds and flowers and leaves in my designs. But fast forward, I came to the US to study, and I worked in banks in the IT sector mostly, but JP Morgan, Barclays, and so very much part of the corporate that treadmill. And I was kind of happy with that until 2018 happened, which kind of reshaped my entire life. I had a really horrible miscarriage in my 37th week of pregnancy, which was so close to delivery. So,
Yeah.
you're so prepared for the baby, and then you're hit with something like that, and that grief. I still don't feel like I have the words for it, but it really breaks you down, makes you rethink about what exactly is life, and you know what you want to do with your life, and reminds you of the mortality of it all, right? Um,
Mm.
so back then, I worked for JP Morgan, and they were kind enough to let me take my maternity, which is
Mm-hmm.
nice. But like there's a nursery, but no baby,
Yeah.
and I feel like the silence is sometimes deafening, and just heartbreaking, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we so what I did was I just ordered a bunch of stuff from Etsy, to keep my mind busy, to do something with hands, and get back into things, because I always loved doing things like that. As a kid, I was always into fashion, and it came naturally to me. It was just a hobby, passion. I never saw it as a career. And it definitely came from my mom, who taught me so much about embroidery, color palettes, and she loved Indian art forms, right? So her wardrobe is full of ajrak and kalamkari and chicken curry and Mysore silk, ikat. So because of where all we lived as well, it was kind of easy to learn about these art forms, and so the appreciation for Indian craftsmanship was put in me very early as well. So yeah, coming back to the story. So yeah, that's where it started. I ordered, and I thought of things to do for survival, you know.
Mm.
And it wasn't Malicious didn't start as a brand or a strategy or with design. It started with survival. It started with grief and pain. So that's really the starting of Malicious. That's where the seed was sown, so to say. But to finish that story, I did go on a trip to India, where I did a small collection with like differently abled jewelry design students, and then I
Mm-hmm.
did go search for like women artisans who could make it better, scale it for me, and make the quality better a little bit. But like none of that. That was just the holiday. Like I wanted to do one collection for myself or gift it to my friends. I did come back and join JP again and went back into my corporate life. But along the way, I had two deliveries, two pregnancies, two little boys. But I never stopped sketching and researching, dreaming, and finally, like 2021 is when I registered the business.
Okay.
But I think I took it up as a business. I thought of it as a business a lot later, you know?
Mm. So going back a little bit to, where when you kind of sowed the seed and started it, or at least that's when it all began, and from this place of grief and this place of, deep hurt, what was it like to actually pull yourself out of that into creating something? When you're going through something like that, it almost feels as if like the world's coming down on you and there's like you can't breathe. But creating something gives you a lot more that you can take from that whole experience of creating things, but at the same time getting yourself to do that is also tremendously hard. How did
Yeah.
you kind of help yourself to get through this whole experience and start something and get excited about something else, because it's a huge grief, right?
Yeah. And you're so right. And grief is something we don't talk about much, right? So it's a lonelier journey. We don't talk about grief. We more than that, we hardly celebrate survival.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that I realized, we as a society are very uncomfortable talking about grief, and that's why
Mm.
it becomes very lonely. And then it becomes about survival at some point, right? Like the loss, it wasn't just loss of the baby, but even my life was at stake at some point. So when you think of all that, you think of what exactly am I doing? Like,
Mm.
why am I working for JP Morgan? Does that make me happy, really happy, or
Mm-hmm.
is it just paying the bills, right? And so, where is contentment coming from? What does success look like? What is happiness for you? So all that, you question all of that. So yeah, like, it really started from a space of escape. That's what it was for me. I just wanted to escape my own pain, and what gave me happiness or joy at that moment was just making something I loved. And this
Mm-hmm.
was the raw me, right? That's the only thing I could escape into. There was nothing else that made me feel better. It wasn't going out, it wasn't watching movies, it was none of that. It was just like, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
The raw, the honest me. And that was just, that person was just happy making things, and making thinking of craftsmanship and researching. We lived in Orissa for a little bit, and I remembered this tribe that used to make beadwork, and they wore the most amazing beadwork, and researching on that tribe, that's what gave me happiness. And
Yeah.
I just built on that, and I just felt like this could be something. And I wanted to show people that you can have beauty and fragility
Mm-hmm.
coexist. You can have joy and grief coexist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which we don't think of, because when you're, yeah,
No, no, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, when you're grieving, like, you don't expect to be building something.
Mm.
um, but for me, that's what gave me happiness, like, to be building when I was really broken.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, it's interesting that you say that we don't really talk about grief as much, and we don't, and we're doing it and we're surviving, right? Like,
Yeah,
and we don't talk about survival. And I feel like a lot of us are also kind of in that survival mode, right? Like, we're constantly just trying to keep up to
yeah,
something, but we're not really ingesting all of these emotions and not like processing all of this, but kind of just like, just to get on, just to pay
yeah.
the bills, or like just to get on by. But I also feel like society has created it like that, that it's so
Yeah.
difficult to stand against it, right?
And I've thought about this so much, because, in 2018 it was a big shock, but even last 2 months were really difficult. And why I kept feeling, and it's both East and West, right? Like, it's not, the culture around the world is that we don't like to talk about grief. We are very uncomfortable, and I don't really know the reason why, but maybe it's, it reminds us of our own mortality, and most people don't have the language for it. I also
Hmm.
think that's one of the reason we don't know what to
Hmm.
say, and so silence is very comfortable, right?
Hmm.
So and I'm the same way too. Like, I wouldn't know what to say, right? So I totally understand that, but yeah. So I think we do love. We celebrate everything else. We celebrate
Hmm.
success. We celebrate milestone, and that's the mindset. But we don't celebrate just like surviving, and also like showing up day in, day
Yeah.
out, going through things, going through the day, and going through the
Yeah.
hard things. And we don't celebrate that at all. Yeah,
I
that's
think we have
that's
really high expectations that are set on ourselves and set on
yeah,
people near and dear. And then if they don't keep up to those expectations, you're like, what are you even doing with your life?
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we see
and
this so often.
yes, yes. And I sometimes now I feel jealous of people who are very content with small
Mm.
things, and are very calm and happy with where they are. There's no big ambitions, and I think that kind of content I never had. I'm very restless. I've always been restless. I've been restless as a child. I did multiple things, and my mom loves to say "jack of all, queen of none," because, like, even in school, I like name it and I've done it.
Yeah.
It just, I was very restless, and I think I'm slowly learning through my life experiences to be happy where I am, and to always think about whatever I have today, I hoped and prayed for 3 years ago.
Hmm.
That kind of mindset really changes things. And
Yeah.
really, like, what I have with Malicious, I couldn't have thought of just when
Yeah.
I started. it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think that's the mindset I am leaning towards. It's not as
Yeah.
easy. War in my head.
No, I completely get it. I feel that too. And I feel like I'm also speaking to more people who are questioning these things and also
Yeah,
wanting to be more content with themselves or the life that they're leading and not kind of conform to society and what those expectations are and follow this really consumerist society and the way of living.
yeah,
There is that battle, and I do feel like maybe it's a small percentage, but I do feel there is a cohort of community of people who are really striving and trying to make a difference to like
yeah,
people around them at least. So hopefully
yeah.
that is a positive outcome.
It feels like it for sure. I think at least with our generation, more people are questioning.
Yeah, yeah,
Like with the older generation, they just went about their day,
yeah,
went to work, came back to their family, and that's the way life
yeah,
is. But I
yeah.
think with our generation, we're like, we burnt ourselves a little bit because we just like we're so independent, we will do everything ourselves. And then now we're like, oh, wait a minute, like maybe I need help. I need to calm down.
Yeah,
What is this life I'm
yeah,
living? So yeah,
yeah,
like I grew up in a community that loves nature, that literally worships nature, and everything goes back to the land. Consciousness is not something that's taught, but like it happens in the everyday life. And then I live in New York City, which I loved in the beginning, but now I'm like, it's such a waste. Everything is a waste,
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think my grandmom, whose sari would become a quilt one day, would become
yeah,
one day, and that's really consciousness for me, right? Like it's
yeah,
not the bigger things; it's the smaller things you can practice every day. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it
And we're
definitely.
so lucky to have that as part of our culture and
Yeah,
part of the way that we grew up. Like we didn't know any better, and luckily we're coming this full circle and
yeah,
appreciating it now, which is
yeah.
so nice. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I think like there was a little bit of obsession with like everything Western, and then
yeah,
now I'm obsessed with everything that's my roots. So I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
the full circle moment. And
yeah, yeah,
growing up, I used to be so bored. Like all my summers, I used to be so bored to go to cook because there's no phone. It's always raining.
yeah,
There's no TV, and I wanted to escape that life. And now that is heaven. You know,
yeah,
I could
yeah.
like, oh, this is so nice.
Feels
Why did I
so
move from here? I
yeah.
should have. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to live in New York as well, and I
Yeah.
still absolutely love, love,
Yeah.
love New York. Like it has my heart for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy I live in India now. Like
Yeah.
there's so much that we have here that I just absolutely love. But of course, I do love New York as well, and I love to travel back and forth. But
I
it's
feel the
nice to
same.
be rooted here.
Yeah, I feel the same. I do like that's my long term plan to move back, but
Yeah,
I hope that happens one day. But
yeah,
I stayed for a little too long, I feel, and now it's like
hmm,
it's become. And also, like my husband doesn't want to come back and do corporate, so it's a struggle. It's a whole
yeah,
another. But I do
yeah.
spend December to March in India, so I
Oh,
escape the winter.
how nice!
Yeah.
Oh, how
And my
lovely!
kids are small enough. So I put them to school there. I'm doing a
Yeah.
social experiment on them.
Oh,
School
how
years.
lovely!
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, I really love, switching between two cultures and, having the best of both worlds. I love New
yeah,
York. Also, I need to escape it because it,
yeah,
it get toxic sometimes and the
yeah.
hustle culture is insane. But you do meet the most amazing
So
people. Like,
many people. Yeah. Do you
it's
live
like,
in the city
yes, I do.
with
Yeah.
two children, with two toddlers?
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I'm surprised you still haven't heard the fire
Yeah.
alarms, like the fire ambulances. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
surprised. But yeah, I do
Yeah.
live in the city, but upper
Nice.
east, so it's a little calmer, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, we good. Thank you. Um, it's a little calmer and it's quieter and it's good for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So lovely.
Yeah.
All right. So now I want to get into your brand a little bit more in terms of we know why you started it and when you started it. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about what the intention is now with the brand from when you started to where you are now? And how has that growth period been since for the last, would we say 4 years officially?
Yeah, officially 4 years. Um, so everything with the brand is a reflection of me. I've never had anyone to do my PR or branding. It's really who I am, and I don't think I'm telling the stories well enough yet. But I do want to improve a lot more and tell a lot more stories of the places I come from and the stories of my community and my roots and the culture itself. I want it to be proudly Indian, but you know be like make the pieces a little more global. So we
Mm-hmm.
do have traditional pieces but with like a little bit of an urban twist, so that no matter who's wearing it, whether someone in New York, Brazil, or Germany, or Bombay, they still feel the heartbeat of India while not feeling like it's kind of trapped in heritage, right? So that's really been the goal with my pieces, and the goal also has been to make it very bold, and that's been
Mm-hmm.
intentional. I do, as you know, most brands will lean towards smaller and dainty pieces, but I wanted to do the opposite with Malicious. Uh, I wanted women to take up the space. I wanted to say you don't have to shrink yourself uh, with smaller pieces. You can be vibrant, you can be loud, you can be unapologetic, wild, crazy, and your jewelry will reflect that. For me, I never saw jewelry as a accessory. It's definitely an armor. The way I express myself and an extension of me, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
how I see jewelry, and I think that's how most Indians see jewelry, because it's always been loud and proud, like heavy. We bring out our emotions. You can tell whether a person is grieving or celebrating or married or not, like with just the jewelry they're wearing.
Yeah.
And so, like, I wanted my pieces to like stand out and not blend in. They're definitely conversation starters, and I just wanted to empower the wearer as well, and feel like what they're wearing are stories of people, not just ornament. So
Yeah.
that's really the thinking behind Malicious.
I definitely want to talk about the aesthetic, but before that, talking about the brand kind of describing who you are as a person, and this blend of Indian and the modern aesthetic is so, so close to my heart as well, because that's what I'm trying to do with Ikivi, and that's who I am
Yeah,
as well. Deeply rooted in the Indian culture, traditions, craft, but also very modern in the aesthetic and things like that. So that's really,
exactly.
really cool. And I also wanted to appreciate you for that, because I feel like we're talking so much nowadays about India in the fashion industry globally, that now I feel like we've been given a platform to kind of shine, not
Yeah.
just for us as brand owners, but also for the supply chain and for craft people all along the supply chain. So it's such a exciting time for us to be in this space, and I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to seeing what the brand does. But fast forwarding to my other question about the aesthetic and being bold, and you even brought up the thought that a lot of people are looking at more minimalist, dainty, understated jewelry, whereas you're bold, right? Like your jewelry is really bold. In India, it is fine, and like there are a lot of people that like that bold jewelry, like you mentioned. But internationally, how does that aesthetic fit in, and what are some of the challenges you've experienced, or not necessarily challenges, but what are some of the experiences you've had while you've been kind of setting up the brand as a bold jewelry brand?
Yeah, so for me, I was very clear about that from the start, right? Like my first collection was uh, 12 pieces of just earrings, and they were all really big earrings. I didn't have anything small. It was There were many customers I would meet during pop-ups, or we do a lot of events, and they would say like, if you can make something this colorful but like smaller. We got a lot of that, but we never really did that, because it's, again, like I said, it's a reflection of who I am, right? Like you want to stay true to what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think it's just who I am as a person, and that's what will um, come out of me, right? Like in terms of design, but
Yeah.
I think it was interesting. Initially, when we started, most of our customers were Americans, South Asian Americans that wanted a piece of that culture, that really
Mm-hmm.
resonated with the story, and wanted a part of it. But today, I think more than 60-70% of my customers are white Americans or African
Hmm.
Americans or Hispanic Americans. And I don't really know when that shift happened, but I think it was in talking about the story. I think people do connect with the story. And connect with the fact that they're so unique, and something
Mm.
that they've not seen, and if they wear it, they will stand out. So I think there's that connection to that as well. I remember there was this pop-up I was doing, I think, during the holiday season last year, and this pop-up had like 3 floors filled with vendors, and we were one of the vendors, and it was so busy. And there was this girl who stopped by in the morning, and then she came back in the evening, and she told me, I spent the whole day in this 3 floors, and I've checked out every piece, every vendor, but you guys have the most unique pieces. And
Mm.
one of my friend happened to be recording that, happened to be, like, she
Mm.
had that recorded, and so we put it up, and that garnered so much interest, and we kind of made it into an ad, and that really bought us a different kind of
Mm.
audience, I think, because
Mm.
such a raw, honest opinion of
Mm-hmm.
someone that was not our usual target audience, that it really like made people stop and say, hey, yeah, this is unique, like, let me check it out. Right.
Yeah.
So now we have our repeat customers, and our customers coming back, because the worry is also that it might infect them, it might turn green. But we really, because I've had some time to like grow with the brand and think about all this, I have really perfected few things, right? Like the quality, and we also make sure that our logistics and operations, we're never really late, we always have enough stock. We have inventory here, we have inventory in India, so no matter where the order comes from, we can ship it from one of these places. So I took care of all that before, like, I even
Yeah.
registered the, right. So yeah, like, I think all these things play into that, and just trying to make things unique, or I think they see it as unique, but for us, maybe it's not as unique, right? So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
they do resonate a lot with the stories that I like. The ring that I'm wearing, it's a tiger, but it has a teardrop coming out of one eye, because there are only 4,000 tigers left in the world, and
Mm.
we donate some part of our profits to rehabilitation of tigers in South India. So people really connect with these stories, and people,
Mm.
feel like they're contributing to something.
Mm.
And again, like, just my story itself, and I always feel like I want to bring something fierce like this with a tear. Joy
Mm.
and grief, again going back to what we were talking about, and I think people really connect with that. And
Yeah.
so I think it's a combination of things. It's the unique products that they find unique, and
Yeah.
then storytelling. And we do have a lot of events, and we do meet a lot of our customers, and few things have come because of things customers have told us.
Mm.
But yeah, I do notice that they're always surprised with my pieces. One of my pop-ups, I want to have like the camera or GoPro running the whole time, because we get such crazy, like,
Yeah.
reflex reactions and stuff, and so
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
record
No,
that.
thank you for listening to the IKKIVI podcast. If you're enjoying our episodes, consider supporting us by visiting www.ikkivi.com. That's IKKIVI.com. Since 2015, IKKIVI has been thoughtfully curating modern fashion infused with Indian heritage, bringing you hand-picked pieces that blend tradition with contemporary elegance. Our passionate venture celebrates the vibrancy of contemporary design while preserving India's rich craftsmanship, creating stunning and ethical silhouettes you'll love. Our podcast is another passion project driven by our dedication to sharing meaningful stories. It is self-funded and will always be free to listen to. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for being here. Now let's get back to the episode. I think it's definitely unique, even though, I'm from India and have seen bold, but like
Yeah.
I do feel it still is very unique. I
Yeah.
have so many questions, but can you tell us a little bit about, you mentioned like the tiger, but if you have some other kind of anecdotes or stories about the other products that you have, and, how did you kind of come up with that design? Because I love this idea of having, I mean, that's with all of the products that we have coming out of India. I feel like every single piece
Yeah.
of clothing that we showcase, also jewelry, whatever we have, has
Yeah.
such a deep story to it.
Yeah.
And I would love, if you could tell us a few stories as well about some of the products.
I would love to, but also, like, to your point, I feel like there's such amazing brands coming out of India. I try to shop only in India now because it's
Yeah.
that amazing. Like, there's so much talent, and I think people are finally giving us the credit, right? Because they always
Hmm.
used our textiles, used our styles, even jewelry wise, but there was never credit given, right? So
Yeah.
now, finally, I think people are recognizing the powerhouse that's India, and that's sort of the point with Maalicious too, like to proudly showcase Indian craftsmanship and also give women artisans the global stage. So
Hmm.
the story I wanted to tell you was one of our artisans sits in Goa. Her name is Shruti, and I've worked with her from the initial days. So when I was looking during my maternity, that 2018 maternity leave, I was traveling in India and I was looking for artisans, right? And one of my aunt's house, they had this wall plate, and it was very pretty, very nice. It was just like a market scene, I think. And I looked back, it had the number of the studio itself, and that's how I reached out to her. And we still
Oh.
really friends, and we always keep in touch because I haven't done a collection with her in a while. But my first collection had these portraits of clay, and we put
Hmm.
a metal collet around it. But the portraits were all made by Shruti in her Goa studio, and we had like three or four pieces, I think, different designs. But one of them was of Amrita Shergill, who's a painter,
Hmm.
who's literally the Frida Kahlo of India, right? But we
Hmm.
ourselves know Frida Kahlo, but we don't know Amrita
Yeah.
Shergill enough. Like, I didn't learn about her growing up, right? I
Yeah.
learned about her a lot later. So I think it's also like a little bit of women empowerment, a little bit of like storytelling. And even we had one more portrait that was of Victoria Gaurama, who comes from Coorg, who's one of the daughters of the king back then. Um, and she went to the UK to meet the Queen and fight for her dad's money. And eventually, Queen Victoria loved her so much that she adopted her as her own child, and of course, named her Victoria. And that's a whole different story. But stories like
Oh.
this gets lost in our history.
Yeah.
Nobody wrote about these stories. But yeah, like eventually she settled in the UK and was called Victoria Gaurama because Gaurama was her real
How
name.
cool.
And so the portrait was of her. I think it was the day she was christened and given this new name. So she's wearing jewelry and she's really dressed up in a sari. So that was a portrait, and someone
How
told me,
cute.
yeah, I don't have it, but we ran out of that
Yeah.
collection. It was
If
one
you
of the
have a
first.
picture of it or something, we'd love to
Yeah, I will
showcase that
definitely.
as well. Yeah.
And yeah, so it was a portrait of someone wearing a lot of jewelry in your jewelry. So someone told me like that's inception. And so these were the conversations I've had with customers, and
Yeah.
that's where the connection came from. And if someone heard that story, they immediately bought it because they
Yeah.
wanted a piece of that culture and they wanted that story. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
definitely.
that's something that I've seen more and more, and I feel so passionately about is when I speak with designers, when we're working with our designers and curating product, and we're asking designers about their story and how they kind of came up
Yeah,
with this design or whatever it is. There is so much of a story and so much passion that
yeah,
gets lost online. Like it's so
yeah.
difficult to tell these really, really honest, authentic stories online. How much ever? Like, I mean, the attention span is so little. But
Yeah.
even like in with this long form content, I feel like we're not reaching enough people.
No.
Like there's so much more impact we can have by reaching people that I don't know. I mean, I feel like people are not like, wouldn't you lap up a story of authenticity, right? Like I would totally love that story. So like from you, from a brand perspective, where are you currently selling and how do you kind of tell these stories through the channels that you're selling at?
Yeah, I feel like I do a very bad job with this, and it's something I am working towards, right? Because when I started, I didn't know I had to become the face of the brand. I
Mm,
wanted to design and wanted to be behind the scenes, but slowly, as you learn business, you learn the business side of things. You know that you are the story, and
yeah.
with Instagram, anyone that's on Instagram, you will learn very quickly that when you post yourself, my whatever I'm wearing, we get few orders for it, right? So I've learned that, yeah, like people connect to me, it's not the
Hmm.
brand, right? And I think that's really the biggest point here. And so it's been, I would say, like we've come a long way from where we were, but
Hmm.
I feel like I'm not doing the storytelling well enough. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it's also difficult, like you said, people want it to be very, very
Quick.
short and very, yeah, quick, and 10-second reel, but
Yeah.
it's not possible to tell the story then. But
Yeah.
I also know that that's what people connect to the most. Like,
Mm.
if you want to build uh, a community, that's the only way to do it. And I think Malicious would just be ornaments otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
without these stories. And with them, it can become a community, and it can become a little more of a movement, and that's
Yeah.
where I want to be. So yeah, like I definitely have to think of better ways of doing this. But yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm not a person that's online too much as well. I don't like my phone too much, but I think that's really where I have to be, and be
Mm-hmm.
telling stories. And this realization has happened a long time ago, but I've not done much about it.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
struggle.
hard. It's
Yeah, it
hard.
is. Yeah.
So, do you sell a lot at pop ups? Or
Yes.
would you say
So
online is your primary um, place of sales, or is it pop ups?
initially, when we started, it was mainly pop-ups, and so we did a lot of events. We did our own events, but also I did like any and every pop-up that came my way.
Yeah.
And it is a really good place for that. There's
Yeah.
so much happening every day. So
Yeah.
that was definitely the case, I would say, even last year. But towards the end of last year, we do have a lot of repeat customers. We like online sales are really good right now, and we have been seeing a lot of traction from India as well. So right
Mm-hmm.
now we were mostly selling in US. We do ship to other countries, and we do get orders from other countries, but it's mostly US. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is a new chapter where we have a new website for India, because most of our Indian customers were having difficulty, especially with the payment gateway that
Ah.
Shopify US doesn't support anything like UPI. Most of the credit cards from India, and I think most people in India shop through UPI, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and cash on delivery. We didn't have options like that. So we eventually started our own website, and it's very new. It's just happening as we speak right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's probably a month old now, and we're trying to, it's just like a full circle moment where I come
Yeah.
back. That's where we manufacture everything. That's where our artisans are, and that's where I want to be. And so it just feels like a full circle moment for me.
So tell us a little bit about your team and kind of, you know, where are your products made? Who makes your products? How big is your team? All of that.
Sure. So team wise, so I'm here. I do have more help here within the team, like few interns that help me out with like the everyday things of it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and especially pop-ups. I do have a lot of friends that come and love to volunteer and help me out. So that's my team in the US, but we have a bigger team in India. So the artisans are kind of scattered, like I said. we have few artisans in Goa, Madhya Pradesh, like anything to do with beadwork or bags come from Madhya Pradesh, decoupage kind of thing comes from Karnataka. So our artisans sit everywhere, but
Mhm.
our metalwork mainly happens mostly in Jaipur. And I think I've tried to take it to Karnataka, which is where I'm from, but like you can't, like people in Jaipur are league apart,
Yeah.
it's amazing how hard they work and how professional they are and how good they are with everything new, like technology and all of that. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
where the team sits. And I do have, like, of course, social media and PR and retail, kind of, well, people that manage different things for me. We're doing a pop up in Bombay,
Oh,
end this week. Yeah. So I
okay.
have a team member from Calcutta flying in. So yeah, we have a little bigger team in India, but here it's mostly, I've been working with Diva as well, who just helps me out
Okay.
with different things. So it's mostly like, friends and people I know coming together here, but there we have a proper team. In terms of process, I never sit down to design because I don't know. I've never learned it. I don't know what that process looks like. I feel like I connect to a story and I sit down to tell a story. Just to give you an example, our next collection was inspired by the story I saw online. So there are these female humpback anglerfish.
Mhm.
That's very, like, it's a mean looking fish, like very monstrous looking. Um, and it usually lives in like deep waters, and they never, like, where sunlight also doesn't reach, so
Hmm.
they live in those deep waters. And I don't think anybody had seen anglerfish before, till I think it was last year or early this year. It was seen floating in shallow waters of
Oh.
the coast of Spain, I want to say. And so people were very surprised how it's floating, and it's a female humpback anglerfish. And the way they mate is also very, very different. So the male species is a little smaller, and it
Uh-huh.
comes and latches on to the female and kind of dissolves into the female fish. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
I
gosh.
know. And so people saw this fish rising up as a rise of feminism, and they connected to it so much because this fish that has never risen has come up and now was basking in the sunlight. So people really connected with it, and that story and that, I think the video went viral. And I
Okay.
saw the story and I was like, this is it. Like, this is my story. I have to create a collection with this. So our next collection is called Water Beings. And we have, of course, a ring, which looks like a mean fish biting into a gemstone, called the anglerfish. And, I researched so much more about, like, these aquatic animals and, the meaning each one holds in different cultures. And so yeah, like, you'll see a
Oh
lot
my
of
God.
pearls in my next collection. Yeah, that's where.
So
So that's,
fabulous.
yeah, right. Like, it's
Yeah.
amazing stories. And so I think that's my process. And then I do a horrible job at sketching, and somehow my team in Jaipur understands it, and they put it into CAD, and we make samples out of it, and that's really the process.
Oh my God. That's such a lovely story because it's such a beautiful process. Like it's
Yeah,
something that you just kind of wait to happen and then you're
yeah.
immediately drawn to something and then you create from that. Like that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love, I mean, that's the only way I know. So it doesn't feel like something different. So I
Yeah.
guess there are benefits of not going to
Yeah.
design school and learning
Fully.
the,
Fully.
yeah,
Yeah.
just doing it from heart. So
Yeah.
yeah, all my collections, I don't even have, till I think last year, I didn't even have it as collections. I just released pieces because you know how it is to work with Indian artisans. It's never on
Mm.
time. So I just released it whenever I had, but now
Yeah.
I'm to make it a little more cohesive and build it like
Mm.
that. But it's taking a long time to
Yeah.
figure this out as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I think it's a slow process, but I
it,
think it kind of eventually will happen as long as
yeah,
there is that intention, I guess.
yeah, and I do work with women, uh, So initially when we started, it was all women,
Mm-hmm.
but turns out we do need men. So we're happy now. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like initially when we started, and it's so much easier. I find it very easy to work with women,
Yeah.
and they kind of understand it and they're to the point and they make it quick. There's no, oh, I think this will be better, or
Mm.
you don't know this. These, I'll ask for some color combination and they would have made something else, and they're like, no, this looks better. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, 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 yeah.
issues with women, and they're like, yeah, very to the point, and so
Yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah. So I have two more questions for you. One more about um, the brand a little bit more. So you've woven personal grief, cultural heritage, women empowerment into your brand, into Maalicious. What has that journey kind of taught you in resilience? Because that's something that kind of stands out for me from you as a
Yeah,
person and what you've built over these years, but also the power of art. Because there are so many ways to kind of communicate these things, but can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on these two things?
yeah. Um, I very early on, when I was going through my grief, I saw the saying, and it said, "Take your pain and turn it into art." And I feel like it was so beautiful for me to even realize that when you are that this shattered, you can build something with purpose, right? So turning pain into purpose kind of story. And it
Mm-hmm.
really like made me realize the strength of women. We have this softness but also the strength, right? Which men
Mm-hmm.
don't have, I mean, generally speaking,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think that was the biggest realization, how you know how much resilience exists. And I think at a certain point, when I look back, when I was going through it, it wasn't resilience, it was survival. I just
Mhm.
did not know how else I could survive the grief, the pain. And I still don't know, like even with the loss of my dad, I am still figuring out how to go about things, because some days are good and some days feel fine. Some days I feel like, yeah, he's around me protecting me, but there are days I feel like the protection that I had in my childhood is gone, right? Somebody that was
Mm.
not physically protecting you, but
Yeah,
just sitting in their place and just wishing you well, and
yeah.
that's taken away, right? And how do you come out of that? How do you deal with that? But the only way I know is to like make something out of that and come out with uh, and when you are going through grief, and this is another biggest realization, so many people will talk to you about that, right? Like when I had my
Mm.
miscarriage, there were so many women that came and told me, oh, I had that, right? And these were people
Mm.
I was, let's say, meeting at work every day, but I didn't know, right? So we don't show it at all until some
Mm.
other person goes through it, and then they're like, so many women have had miscarriages around me that I didn't even know about. uh,
Mm.
with loss of a parent, people will come up and tell their stories of what happened when their father passed
Yeah.
away, or how did it happen. And these stories of resilience come out, which is in a way nice, because misery loves company, and so you feel like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is what I'm going through and I have company.
Yeah.
But still, like we discussed earlier, it's also a lonely journey, because like your grief is yours, and what you went through, nobody else, maybe
It's
your
well,
sibling,
yeah.
yeah, nobody else will kind of understand. And so what do you make of it? And I think making something out of that, making art out of that, is just so much more beautiful, and you have a way of always remembering them and thinking of them.
Yeah.
I really connect with this movie. I think it's called Coco. It's a children's movie, but it's about like how in Hispanic culture, they celebrate the Day of the Dead. I think Mexican
Mm-hmm.
culture mainly, and like they say, like everyone that's moved on from Earth is living somewhere else altogether, and they survive in that world until the last person talks about them, right?
Uh,
That's such a beautiful thought, and that's
yeah, yeah.
way to keep someone's memory alive. And with
Yeah.
for me, with Maalicious, it is keeping the memory of my little son alive. And I'm sure like I'll come up with a collection for my dad, but in whatever way you can, I think, to keep the memory alive, I think that's where that survival is what becomes resilience when you look back. um,
Yeah.
these are these are my learnings, I feel like, from
I
the
love
grief,
that.
yeah, I've gone
Yeah.
through.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So my last question to you is again for some more learnings to share
Yeah,
with us. For aspiring, creative
yeah,
entrepreneurs looking to build purpose-driven brands and really bring about this deep sense of story behind these brands and not just simply creating a brand, what's the most important lesson or advice you'd offer?
I feel like I say this a lot, but like always start with, don't wait for the plan to be perfect. Start with what you have and then make it good later, right? Like I said, like the seed was sown in 2018, but like by now I've learned so much because I started back then. If I'd only started in 2022 or 2021, I I think I would still be improving in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Get like the technicality right out of the way, and then you can concentrate on being authentic and being, like storytelling and the branding and all of that can come later because it evolves. And no matter
Mhm.
how many business plans you have, it'll always change, right?
Yeah.
That's life. So yeah, I feel like get started would be the first biggest advice. And then I think, be authentic to who you are and tell your story. You can never, um, you know, be anyone else. I think that's a given. But like, just talk from talk about your roots and your what you know best, your story. And
Yeah.
then I would also say, replenish yourself a lot more, because I feel like we have this culture where we are burning out, and I think the hustle culture is considered cool, or I'm so busy is what everyone's saying. But you need to take time off, take a nap, go travel
Yeah.
with friends. I think that's where creativity really, that's when it flows, right? Like, at least
Yeah.
for me, that's how
Yeah.
it feels like. And I think if you are the brand, you are the most precious thing. You have to take care of yourself and really go out there and kind of do things that you love and will make you creative and make you come up with ideas. So yeah,
Yeah.
take care of yourself.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Poonam,
Yeah,
for
just
having this conversation with me. I'm so excited to see, the follow the brand more and be a part of this community and see what kind of, where you go with the brand. I feel
yeah,
like there is so much relatability and
yeah,
passion as well that is so contagious, and I hope that we're able to also tell your story to our community as well. But I'm really looking forward to all that you do, and thank you so much for having this conversation and sharing all your uh, deep stories and emotions with me.
thank you so much, Nivi. Thank you for having me.